All right. Hello, everyone.
Hi. Hello.
Hey,
Can you hear me? Hi.
Jane. Lots of familiar faces coming on here is great. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and get our slideshow on the go here. And always that up. And how do you move that out of the way? Move my window. There we go. All right, so the first thing I need to do is my disclaimer. I do this with all my clients that walk in. So, first of all, this information is for educational purposes only, and that the educator, myself, Shannon Stark, RHN, so registered holistic nutritionist, conducting this is not a medical doctor. The information being sought here is of nutritional nature and is not for medical diagnosis or
Okay.
treatment. Any nutrition, any suggested nutrition, sorry, is intended as a primary therapy, is not intended for disease or symptoms. So any schedule of food or supplements is provided solely to upgrade and enhance the quality of food delivered through diet. So if I could, I guess I need to turn off people's mics. I don't know if people, I don't, people can turn off their mics and then I won't get the other background sounds in here. All right. Or is that something I can do that too, right?
Shannon, would you like to make me a co-host? It's Win. I can
Yeah.
monitor that if you like.
Yeah. And so participants win and I don't have co-host. I just have host.
Okay, so as the host, you can just mute all.
Yeah. And mute. Oh, there we go. All right. Yeah, I'm a little slow on the techie side, but there we go. All right. So let's just keep going here. So as we all know, there's consequences to having our omega-6 and omega-3 imbalance. So an excessive omega-6 can effectively crowd out omega-3. So we want to have this in balance. The other thing is these two fatty acids, they compete for the same enzymes and the biological space in your cells. And when one dominates, this is going to influence how your body handles inflammation, blood clotting, cellular cell signaling. So we want that in balance. So when we have a customer or client and they want to know what this means for them, you can just have them, Google or search what their omega ratio means for them, their possible symptoms, and what they might be struggling with. The other thing I like people to do is, encourage them to bring their report to their doctor. This is important, and doctors need to be more aware of this. So, all right, so your personal test results. So the balance test looks at your essential fatty acid profile. So it's looking at 11 fatty acids in the blood, six different health markers. And as most of us know, the balance oil, we need to dose it by weight. And how to dose is you take your weight in kilograms, you're going to multiply that by 0.15 milliliters. So, for example, someone who's 150 pounds, you're going to times that 68 kilograms by 0.15 mil, and then that would equal a 10 milliliter dose per day. As you know, on the bottle, this was just a discussion we were having in a group. It says no more than 3 teaspoons, and that's legally has to be on the bottle. But we definitely want to dose by weight. People who are heavier need more, and those who are working out and ripping muscle every day, they're having a lot of inflammation. And as you know, if your first test comes back at 3 to 1 or better, then you get a 100% refund on this. All right, so the tests are sent to Vitus Analytical Services in Norway, so a third-party independent lab. You can expect to wait between 10 to 20 days for your test result, sometimes a little bit longer. I have one client who's been waiting a little bit longer, and from what I understand, it's just a busy place right now, especially with Canada getting on board. Um, and our team. And yeah, so just be patient, but there is a recourse if a test does get lost. And of course, we know we visit our zenzinotest.com and you use your anonymous test ID number to get your results. And then you have the option, you can download the full report. I forget how many pages it is, or the 4-page printer-friendly report. And that's the one I usually will print for my clients. All right, so your test results are back. Now what? What does this mean? So this is actually a new client of mine, and they were not taking omega-3 supplements prior to testing. So these were their actual results. So as you can see, the omega-6 to 3 ratio, 33 to 1. Fatty acid score, 0, insufficient. Omega-3, insufficient, 2.6%. Cognitive fatty acid, insufficient, 5 to 1. And your fatty acid fluidity ratio, 14 to 1, insufficient. And their arachidonic acid, omega-6, at 12.8%. So this is all, we see the red, we know we're insufficient, but what does it actually mean? So let's look at our omega-6 to 3 ratio. So for this person at 33 to 1, this person's omega-6 is 11 times higher than it should be. And you'll have people that'll be in that, you know, 15 to 1 or 6, and they're like, oh, I'm doing really good. And well, yeah, comparatively they are, but still not. We need to be 3 to 1 or 1 to 1. And so how you figure out how many times higher it is, you just take their omega-6 number and you divide that by 3, and that'll tell them how, the 11 times higher. Unless you're like me and I want to be 1 to 1, then this would be 33 times higher. The other thing is this then just points to a diet that's just heavy in processed foods, seed oils, refined carbohydrates, and lacking in sufficient omega 3s. So I got this. How do I get this smaller? That didn't work. It's in my. Is this in everyone's way too? There we go. This points to a diet. So we want that insufficient omega-3s. So the examples of that are the fatty fish. So we need more of these foods in our diet. So the sardines, salmon, the flax seed, walnuts, chia seed. So then it's like, what are some symptoms of this unbalanced ratio? So this is where we just want to be careful about, diagnosing or saying anything medical. But the simple fact is, when this ratio is this high, we're looking at systemic chronic inflammation. And we know that this is a driver for cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, and type 2 diabetes, for example. When we have this ratio, we're looking at a heightened mortality risk. And this is the truth of the matter, right? So we don't want to scare people, but we need to know these numbers. So population studies have shown that individuals with the highest omega-6 to 3 ratio have a significantly higher risk of all-cause cancer and cardiovascular mortality. Autoimmune and joint issues, one of probably the biggest ones I see in my office. And so excessive omega-6 metabolites trigger that pro-inflammatory substance that worsens symptoms. So that's what the overall omega-6 to 3 ratio is saying. Then we look at this fatty acid score. This person was at 0. I was at 0 for mine as well. So this is basically showing the The percentage is showing the body's ability for tissue repair and its resilience to health stressors. So we always have stress happening to us. And if this number is at zero, then we're just going to be affected more. So as you can see, we want this number to be up to 90 to 100%. And also, and I'll just note here, you can also have your customers in their reports. They can click on this little plus sign and it'll give more information in there as well. So So the omega-3 index, this is the one that the doctors will look, they'll test, but you might have to beg and cry and pay a lot of money. But so this is measuring the amount of EPA and DHA in that red cell membrane. So of course, lower than 8%, it's just a higher risk for cardiovascular disease, and then even heart, brain, and eye health. So I have some clients that are taking it and their eyes are improving, which is kind of neat to see all these testimonials coming in. So the cognitive fatty acid index. So this person is at 5.0 to 1. So pretty low. We want this, 1 to 1, and this is the one where we see that zero point 0.5 to 1. So that range. So this implies that there's an impairment in the brain cell communication. So this can contribute to the accelerated age-related cognitive decline. And for example, forgetting things, losing your train of thought, feeling overwhelmed when having to make a decision, just some general confusion. So you see this a lot in the age, but even younger people are struggling, right? Brain fog and just, not being able to function with neurologically. So, and this is the number that determines what's going on there. The cells are just not getting nourished. Then here's the fatty acid fluidity ratio, also known as the cell membrane fluidity. And this number, 14 to 1, this is crazy. And this is what I do in my job. So I look at live blood every day and for the last 8 years. And what I'm looking at when I'm looking at the cells, I'm looking at multiple things, but one of the main things is I'm looking at that cell wall to see how strong that cell wall looks. If there's lots of kinks or different shapes in there, is known as acanthocytes. I know right away, or I used to think this is an omega-3 deficiency, and it absolutely is an omega-3 deficiency, but it's also too much omega-6 now that we've been more educated on this ratio. So this determines how well the cells are accepting nutrients and how well it's getting rid of waste. So that this is critical. And this was the big thing for me and in my office. It's like, I need to get these cells better. Now we can't fix a cell that's already has like is it an acanthocyte or a novocyte or a poikilocyte? We can't fix those. We can only feed the new cells coming out. So that's that 120 days, right? Because the life cycle of the cells 120 days. So we want to get those new ones healthier. Now, arachidonic acid. So this is your omega-6. So you can either be too high or too low or just right. So call it the Goldilocks effect here. So this person's 12.8, and so that's very high. So anything higher than 9.5, this is basically an imbalance of dietary fats. So you can get a lot of persistent inflammatory related conditions like your arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, skin issues, cardiovascular, neurological, or cognitive dysfunction. Then we can be on the other end where we're lower than 6.5, and this is usually tied to diets that are low in animal fats, and or metabolic enzymes issues. So they're not creating enough enzymes to break down these nutrients or a severe malabsorption. So common symptoms will be impaired immune responses, poor tissue repair, and neurological issues. So you can be on either end. So of course, Goldilocks, right? We just want just right in that middle. This is actually, some people, I know they said they don't like to look at this page. This is actually my favorite page, the fourth page, because it really dials in on what's going on. Um, with those breaking down the fat. So personally, I eat a high saturated fat diet. So I eat a lot of animal products, a lot of fruit, and some veggies. And so what I've done here is I've broken down the foods, and you'll see some are in green and some are in red. And this is my personal opinion and my what I've been taught and what I've used to help people. So just take my red and green with a grain of salt, and you have to apply it to yourself. So the first thing we're looking at is your saturated fats. And when you're looking here, so we have our PA and our SA, and they give you a target range that you want to be in. This row right here is your value, and then your deviation in percentage. So what we're looking for is you want 0% all down this row here. So this person, they're actually doing pretty good with the saturated fat. So they're at a 0%, which is your goal, and then -2%. So I still would say that's pretty good. But then if you're way out of range, too high or too low, then you want to come over and you want to look at this food group and look at, okay, what am I eating too much of or not enough of? So if you're super high in these acids, then you might want to look at, like, are you eating store-bought ice cream? Are you into the palm oil products and the pastries and cakes and fried foods, So peanuts, peanut butters, like oh, that's not even a nut, right? We know it's a legume. It's super inflammatory. A lot of mold issues with peanuts. So I don't allow that in my house. So I'm not very popular with the peanut lovers in my house, but that's the rule. And then wheat products and products made from wheat. So if you can do homemade sourdough, you're good to go with the wheat. I use an organic, unbleached wheat. Um, when I'm doing my sourdough. But the other thing with milk and milk products, some people are sensitive to that. So you really want to make sure that, you're good with these products. And how I test it is, I will not eat these foods for a while and then I bring them back into my diet to see how I react. But the higher the fat content with dairy, the less chemicals, the less sugar, the less lactose. So I always find that high fat dairy, high fat cheese, if you can get raw where you are, then even better. But I will do, like, I can't eat ice cream. I have a huge reaction to the skim milk and the sugars. But I just bought a Ninja Creamy and we're having fun because I'm using whipping cream, I'm using honey, I'm using maple syrup and fruit and no reaction. So it's not about not being able to eat ice cream. It's about getting those good ingredients in there. Um, Red meats and meat products made from red meat. Now, I'm an O neg blood type. I'm aware of the eat for your blood type diet. Do I follow it 100%? No, but O positive is the most common blood type out there. And with red meat, that's actually a medicine for people with O blood type. So it's not about you want to make sure you're getting quality grass-fed, free range meats, lean cuts, and then that you actually have the ability to break it down, and that goes into digestive stuff. And then your coconut and avocado products, poultry, eggs, nuts, they're all in the saturated fat department. The next one we're looking at is omega-9. This is non-essential, so it means the body makes it. This person is doing awesome. They're at 0%. If you're too low or too high, again, you want to look at these food sources and just see where you may be eating too much of or not enough of to bring that into balance if you're focusing on diet. And then here's our omega-6. So omega-6 is essential, means the body needs to get it from the diet. And you can see there's a lot more red here when it comes to the omega-6 foods. So vegetable oils, corn oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, these are all super inflammatory oils. And then you get into your seed oils, and those seeds aren't inherently bad. It's just how they're manufactured into oils. So um, pork fat products, and palm oil. Again, palm oil comes up, all those great foods we love to snack on. And then back to the avocado and poultry, eggs, and again, sourdough. So that's when it comes to omega-6. So I like looking at this one here because you can see they're actually doing good with GLA. And GLA is your more of your plant base, like borage oil, evening primrose oil, and so those oils. So if you this person's doing well there, I personally, this number is super high for me because I take an evening primrose oil. So since doing this test, I've stopped my EPO altogether because I'm zero in all my omega sixes except GLA, which I thought was really interesting. So I've stopped the omega, or I've stopped the evening primrose oil, and then we'll see what happens when we come back to that. But you can see 18%. So the next slide is where the problem is. And this is where I see a lot of issues. And this is like for people who are taking omega-3s, like myself, and a lot of practitioner lines. And I even got away from fish oils and went to a seal oil because it had a little bit more of that DPA in it. Um, Man, my numbers are actually worse than this person who's not taking Omega. So it's kind of shocking and frustrating. And, it makes me kind of angry because I think about all that money I've spent over the last, 15 years taking Omega-3s. ALA, you're going to get ALA from spinach, Brussels sprouts, your berries, and walnuts. So this person, I know this person, they tend to eat out a lot, so they're probably not getting a lot of these foods in their diet. EPA, like, oh my gosh, minus 88%. That's scary. And then, of course, where are we getting EPA, DPA, DHA? We're getting, it's going to be the same thing three times over here. Fatty fish, products made from fatty fish, the liver of white fish, seafood, algae, and of course, our favorite Zinzino Balance products. And then DPA. And this is when I go back 2 years and when I started getting frustrated with omega-3 fish oils, DPA is what came across my plate. And I was like, what is DPA? So, as it says here, often missing in many of the commercial omega-3 supplements. So, the research and the manufacturers, they really focus on the EPA, DHA, but they are missing the DPA portion, which is it's you need it all together, right, for it all to work. And then I just put a link there if you want to read a bit more about DPA. So I couldn't actually make a link on here, of course, but yeah, it's just very interesting to learn about this, which then took me down the whole Inuit diet, right? Because you're looking at seal oil, and then I've been on seal oil for the last 2 years, and my omega-3 numbers were similar to this, and some were worse. So um, just frustrating, right? And then our DHA, the same thing from fatty fish, liver, whitefish, seal oil, seafood, algae, Zinzino balance. So what do? We have to take our our Zinzino balance oil. And this seems to be the only way that's bringing us back into the balance. And it's very important that you're, doing your daily compliance. Open the fridge, put that oil right at eye level in the fridge, and or even if you have to put a notification on your phone, just take your oil, so it's so important to do it daily. And then, of course, your personalized dosing. You want to make sure that you're getting your dose for your weight. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing here. And then and I gotta go in and turn on mics, right? Uh, How
And
do I
you
unmute?
might want to stop the recording as well if you wish.
Yes, I'll do that. Thank you. Are you sure?